friends, welcome to my YouTube channel, I guess. I've never made a YouTube like this before. I used to make science videos back in the day demonstrating how to do physics, but I've never made this kind of video, so if you like it, please let me know and I will invest in better sound and visual equipment for you. But anyways, my name's Adriana. I'm a PhD student at Stanford in the biosciences, and today I wanted to share my story of how I went from being a college dropout and actually getting kicked out of college to pursuing my PhD at Stanford, because I know that application season is coming up. I know that application season is really stressful and really hard, so I hope to give you guys some reassurance, and by sharing my story, maybe give you some hope with your future and where you can go in science. So to start, I started college back in 2017. I was on a scholarship to a liberal arts school, and they invited me to leave about 2 months after my first semester started. So by that I mean they kicked me out. And I remember that I really struggled there. I remember that I struggled a bit mentally. I remember that I really struggled because my self-esteem was so bad in my late teens and early 20s, and I just remember that I felt like I wasn't smart enough, and I couldn't do it. I felt like I cannot do this. So after they kicked me out, I had a transcript full of W's, and that was my first ever semester of college, and that was absolutely heartbreaking for me because I felt so badly about myself that I had, been asked to leave. But I moved back in with my parents, I got a job, and then I kind of waited for the next semester. The next semester, I went back. Academically, I did amazing, and I took this incredible genetics class where we worked with Drosophila, and over the course of the semester, we were trying to figure out which chromosome a mutation was on, and I had the best time. I loved that class so much. I would sneak into the bio building on weekends because I really wanted to look at my slides, and I wanted to do my crosses, and I wanted to sort them. So yeah, loved that class. And I ended up kind of falling behind in my coursework for my first year, because if you were a science major, then you know that a lot of courses are sequential, so you need to take, Chem 1 before Chem 2, and then you take OChem and then OChem 2, and since I went back in the spring, I was already behind. So I also continue to struggle a little bit mentally there. I am like the sunshine. I do better with sunshine. It was in a more rainy location, so I actually decided to move, and I transferred to Santa Barbara City College. And in my first semester at Santa Barbara City College, I again felt like I wasn't smart enough to be doing things, and I dropped out about 2 months in. So at this point, I had 2 semesters of withdrawal, and I did not complete any of my coursework for those 2 semesters. I had only 1 complete semester of coursework. So after I dropped out, I was working this whole time. I've had a lot of jobs, but I got a job, and then the next semester I dropped out again. So now we're at 3 semesters of me dropping out. And again, continued to work, got a job, and then finally I went back one more time, and then I dropped out again. So at that point, it was like, girl, go work on yourself, right? And I wish that I had taken time off before I started undergrad, but that's okay, live and learn. So I moved, I got a job, I got some kind of life experience, spent some time out in the world, and then COVID happened, and I went back to school online during COVID, and that really enabled me to kind of stay in my lane, focus on myself, really, focus on my academics. And I took a full year's worth of physics during the summer, so it was really intense. It was a lot of class, it was a lot of work, but I had an amazing professor who really supported me through it and kind of got me over that academic hurdle that had been holding me back. And I remember she said to me, "You should consider doing research." And I was like, that sounds boring. I don't know what that means. Because at this point in my life, no one had ever explained to me, what a scientist does, what a PhD means. It's like, oh, you have to have a PhD to be a professor. No clue in my head, what research was. I started working at a restaurant, and I started working in clinical psych. I worked at a rehabilitation center for adolescent boys, and I changed my major to psychology. I decided that I wanted to become a recreation therapist. I also got some other work experience. I'm really into fitness, so I worked in a physical therapy office, and I don't like touching feet, so that was not the career for me. But so I decided to pursue clinical psych, and after a while I got pretty burnt out. It was an incredible job, it was so rewarding, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to work in clinical psych because I found it to be a little bit emotionally hard for me. So when I transferred to the University of Utah, I was continuing to plan to do recreation therapy, and everyone told me, again, like, if you want to go to grad school, you need to get research experience. And again, I was like, what even is that? And like, other people around me were like doing research and doing all these crazy cool things, and I started to feel really small and bad about myself, but I was like, no, like, I'm gonna stay in my lane. Again, I was very busy. At this point, I'm just too busy to be like caught up in things, right? I'm working until midnight at the restaurant. I'm trying to do my classes, but I really wanted to do science. And I found this lab that was doing neurobiology in just using Drosophila as their animal model, and I was like, oh my god, I took this amazing class. I love Drosophila. I used to sneak into that building to play with my flies. I can do this. And my mom used to make fun of me when I was an undergrad because I would like call her like having a freak out or whatever, and she would be like, go play with your flies. Like, I loved the flies so much, I cannot even tell you. So I interviewed with this lab, and again, I was like this random psych major who was just like, yeah, I'm interested in neurobiology. I mean, you see the bridge, right? Like psych to neuro, it kind of makes sense. But because I had this experience and this bizarre passion for Drosophila, they hired me because I knew how to work with flies. I knew that I liked working with flies. That's a big thing, right? If they hire someone and then it turns out that person hates working with flies, then that's not a good fit. But I loved it. And they were the most incredible team of people because they completely reshaped my future and they completely reshaped my education. Because at this point, again, I was a little bit lost. I was majoring in psych. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do clinical psych. I was kind of gearing up towards recreation therapy. But I was open, and I always loved biology. I really truly believed that I wasn't smart enough to do it. I thought that you had to be, some kind of genius to do biology, and I thought, that's not me. So they were so patient with me. They taught me so much. They taught me everything, and it was so nice because I was learning in the lab, right? I was learning with hands-on, doing experiments, and I wasn't stressing so much about, oh my gosh, I have to get an A in this, I have to get perfect grades, because there was no grades. It was just doing research, and I loved it, and I had incredible mentors. That was in the Link Lab at the University of Utah, so big, huge shout out to the Link Lab, big, huge shout out to the University of Utah, because I say it all the time, but they changed my life, and my mentors were so patient with me. Sometimes I was just a little slow on the uptake, and they had to explain things to me so many times, and they were just so patient, so kind. They changed my life. But anyways, I realized there that I really, really liked doing research. I love being at the bench. I love, getting my hands in the science. So I was encouraged to apply to REU programs. And at this point, I have maybe like 6-7 months of research experience. So I went to apply for REUs, and I was rejected from all of them because I still kind of had no idea what I was doing. Like, I knew I liked what I was doing, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do big picture, right? So I was rejected from all my REUs. So I stayed in the lab that summer, which was awesome, and I got to continue working as a waitress, which I loved. I loved being a waitress. I worked with really cool people, and I got to meet lots of cool people. I got to talk to my customers about my flies and my fly brain, so it was really fun. So I spent my summer there, and then the following year, they started to give me more independence. I got my own research funding from the University of Utah, and I was able to spend more time in the lab and, work on more projects. So I was positive that I loved science. Again, this really changed my life because at this point, I was just like dropping out. I was trying all these jobs, and I liked my jobs, but I didn't have a super clear sense of direction, and at this point it was like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to be at the bench doing things. I want to be looking at brains on a confocal. This is what I want. So I knew I wanted to apply to grad school. However, in my mind, I was like, I am not a competitive applicant. I have, less than 2 years of research experience. I haven't taken any of the correct coursework. I haven't taken any, grad level coursework. I was rejected from all of my REUs. I don't have a first author publication. So I decided that I wanted to apply to a postbac to kind of try to fix some of those holes. I didn't do any of those things in my postbac. I did not take grad level coursework. I did not take bio coursework. I did not get a first author publication. I learned R, and I had amazing experiences in my postbac, but I didn't do all these things that I thought that I had to do in order to get into grad school. So after I graduated from the University of Utah, I moved to California, and I did my postbac at UCSF in the membrane lab, which is run by Dr. John Vaughn. He is phenomenal. He was starting his lab up from scratch when he hired me. And the reason he hired me, again, was because we have a shared passion for Drosophilas. Drosophila does not have an S on the end, sorry. But following the flies and following the vibes is really how I got to where I am today, because I liked flies. Somehow I found this fly lab in Utah. It led me to this fly lab at UCSF, and all of the people I met along the way and just following what I loved, they're the ones who got me here, who changed my life, who reshaped my life, and just my incredible mentors really paved the road for me. So I really just owe so much to them. But anyways, I helped John start his lab at UCSF, and during that time I was applying to grad school. We were starting up the lab. I was running some experiments, but I obviously didn't get a first author paper out of my postbac because we were just starting up the lab. I did not take any grad level coursework. I applied for the NSF GRFP. I didn't even get honorable mention. All of these things that I thought I had to have to get into grad school, I didn't end up getting. But what I did get was amazing mentorship and support, and John made me apply to Stanford because I was like, look at my transcript, look at my coursework, no one's gonna want me. And there were some schools that I reached out to, and I was like, hey, I want to apply to your school, but I don't have XYZ coursework. And they were like, yeah, sorry, we require that. So I didn't apply to those schools. But John told me, no, you really need to apply to Stanford. So I applied to Stanford, and obviously that's where I am now. But I will say I applied to 5 schools. This was, again, a few years ago, so I know people are kind of applying to more schools now, but I only applied to 5. I was invited to interview at all 5 of them. I decided to interview at 4 schools, and then I was accepted to all 4 of those schools. And then ultimately, again, I chose to go to Stanford. But all this to say, if there's one thing you take away from this video, I hope it's that your starting point doesn't really matter. It's not even where you finish, whether you have a first author publication or none or no publications. It's really, that you finish and that you keep going and that you don't give up, because that's what I've learned the most over this journey, is that follow what you love, find what you love, and it'll keep leading you to more and more and such great things and opportunities and abundance. So, my journey was, I got kicked out of college, then I dropped out of college, then I dropped out of college again. I got put on progress probation at community college because I couldn't finish any of my courses. I went back. I had an amazing professor who believed in me. I continued to have more amazing professors who believed in me. And all of these people that I met, they gave me opportunities, right? My professors, they invited me to be TAs for their courses, which ultimately helped me to build my teaching resume. And then I got this research opportunity, which allowed me to, be on some publications and apply to other research opportunities, apply for funding, things like that. So this road really led me to where I am today. It's okay if it has ups and downs. It's okay if your CV isn't perfect. It's okay if your transcript isn't perfect, because you have something to contribute. You don't have to feel like you're the smartest person in the room. Smart doesn't exist anyways, but just know that wherever you are, just keep going. Remember what got you into science in the first place, right? Remember what you're passionate about, and you'll end up where you want to go. So I hope this is helpful. I'm going to continue making more videos specifically about writing your statement of purpose, interviews, grad admissions type things. If you want more like, this is my life as a grad student type of stuff, I can do that too. But I hope that this story helps you. I hope it gives you some reassurance, and yeah, just don't give up on yourself. You'll make it through admission season. I know it's stressful. Reach out to me if you have any questions. My Instagram is the same as my YouTube. It's at Cells and Barbells. Cells like the things that make up life, and barbells like in the gym. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, best of luck. Bye.